When working with photometric lighting, once again, it is critical that you model your scene to accurate real-world scale. That's not something that is always necessarily done in an animation or visual effects workflow. So if you come from the game world or from media and entertainment, you might not have learned at stage one to model all of your scenes to some particular scale. Whereas if you come from an engineering or design background, then that's probably sort of an assumption that we're always modeling to scale. Well, if you haven't modeled to scale, then you're going to have problems. Your photometrics are not going to work correctly. So you're going to have to fix that somehow. Just to show that I have modeled this scene to scale, I'm going to create a box here. And I'm going to create a box here that's 1 foot on a side. Oops, that's 1 inch. I'm going to do 12 inches, 1 foot on a side. And I usually do this just as a sanity check to see, okay, did I really build this thing to scale? Is that really right? So this is kind of a trick that people do a lot, is create a box that's 1 foot on a side or whatever amount on a side in order to be able to see, okay, is it really the right size? And in this case, it is. That's fine. Let's say that you have an issue, that you haven't modeled your world to scale. Then what? Well, you're going to have to rescale your whole scene. And there's good ways and there's bad ways to do that. I'm going to delete this box. One way that you could scale your scene would be to select it all and put it into a group and then scale the group. But that's going to cause problems because if things are linked together, or if you have constraints, or if you have any kind of fancy animation stuff going on in there, then it's probably going to break when you scale the entire group up. So that's not recommended. What I do recommend that you do instead is go up to the Utilities panel here, and you want to go into More. And within here, we have all these utilities. You're looking for one that says Rescale World Units. And this is going to just create a multiplier just globally on all of your geometry and scale it all up or down. It's more robust. It's probably not going to break as easily as if you had just grouped everything and scaled it manually. I'm going to go in here just to show it to you. Okay, so we have to click Rescale over here. And you've got a scale factor. And we want to affect the entire scene usually. So if I put in a value of 10, then my scene would be scaled up to be 10 times its current size. If I put in a value of 0.1, it'll be scaled to be 1/10 of its current size. Okay, I'm not going to execute that because, of course, mine's already modeled to scale. The very worst thing you can do would be to change your system unit scale. This is how 3ds Max internally calculates scale, and if you adjust this on an existing scene, you could actually kill your scene. So I'm going to show this to you in order to warn you away from it. And, this is a do not touch situation. But I just want to show it to you. In your Customize menu, you have your unit set up. You've probably seen this before. You've got your display unit scale where you get to choose what units of measure you want to work in. Do you want to work in metric or US standard or whatnot? So the display unit scale doesn't affect the geometry in any way. It just changes how, for example, dialog boxes read out units, or little spinners. With my box a moment ago, it was reading out in feet and inches. So if you change the display unit scale, it's not going to alter your scene. It's just going to alter your yardstick. What kind of yardstick are you going to use, essentially? This button up here, System Unit Setup, this is the big bad one that could get you into trouble. So I'm going to go in here just to illustrate. Okay, the System Unit Setup. This calculates the actual raw accuracy of 3ds Max as an application. If you went in and changed this after you had built your scene, there's a chance that you would actually destroy your scene because you might end up with round-off errors in which the computer didn't know whether a point was here or there, and it just collapsed them both together. And you get geometry crumpling and all kinds of horrors. So do not change this at any time, except maybe if you are modeling an entire city, you might come in here and change this to, feet or meters or something, but only do that before you start modeling. Okay, and the reason this exists is because you can't have super huge objects and super tiny objects in the same scene. So I wouldn't be able to model something the size of the Earth and also have something modeled the size of a person in the same scene. Just there's not that much accuracy to 3ds Max. And in fact, none of the major media and entertainment 3D applications have that kind of accuracy. It just doesn't exist. There are systems that have that accuracy, but 3ds Max is not one of them. So again, the system unit setup needs to be left alone unless you're building a very, very large scene, and you would change the system unit setup only before you begin modeling and not after. So again, model your scene to scale. If you've forgotten to model your scene to scale, you can use rescale world units to get it up to snuff, and no other method is really going to work. So that's really the best way to deal with the situation. But of course, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So hopefully now that you've heard this, you will not go down the path of modeling to arbitrary scale, but you'll have an absolute real-world one-to-one scale for all of your scenes from now on.